The 18 dragon-subduing palms unleashed by Jack Guo roared forth like a tidal wave, each strike crashing down with terrifying force. Gusts of wind rose violently, dust clouds billowed, boulders shattered into fragments, and the earth trembled as if heaven and earth were being torn apart. Opposite him, Western Venom Owen operated his sinister poison arts, his deep internal energy emanating a chilling aura of menace. His bizarre techniques, serpent-like and elusive, weaved through the surging palm waves. When their internal forces clashed midair, a thunderous explosion erupted, sending dust and rock flying in all directions, as though the very sky had been ripped open. It was a battle that shook the world, a life-and-death clash between Jack Guo and Western Venom Owen, unfolding just as Mongol troops surged forward to invade Northern Song. What had driven these two martial titans, standing on opposing sides, into such a fateful duel? Keep following the legend of the marksman hero to uncover the mystery behind this world-shaking confrontation. In the final days of the Northern Song, the court was relentlessly oppressed by the Jin dynasty. The emperor of Northern Song was captured, the regime collapsed, and the capital was forced to move south, establishing the Southern Song. However, the Southern Song's power was feeble, heavily subjugated by the Jin. Annual tributes were required for peace, yet the Jin did not stop at conquering Northern Song. They continued expanding, leaving the borderlands in constant turmoil. To avoid becoming prey for the Jin, the Mongols formed alliances with local tribes, determined to resist to the end. Thus, war erupted across the land. Massacres and purges swept through the alliance. Countless lives were lost. The Mongol soldiers, famed for their unmatched horsemanship and archery, repeatedly repelled Jin invasions with devastating counterattacks. In one pursuit through a deep gorge, Mongol troops unexpectedly encountered a mysterious young man. They immediately loosed a volley of arrows, yet none struck their target. Startled, they approached and discovered the young man spoke fluent Mongolian. Though he appeared Han, he claimed to be of mixed Song and Mongol heritage. He was searching for a long-lost friend. Hearing this, the Mongol soldiers relented and let him go. That young man was none other than Jack Guo, who would later earn fame across the martial world as the greatest master of his generation. The friend he mentioned was none other than Rose Huang, whom he had known while living in Mongolia. Jack Guo, burdened by the death of his father, was determined to venture into Central Plains. During his journey, he had once stayed on Peach Blossom Island, where the Eastern heretic Elijah Huang, Rose's father, had taught him martial arts. Over time, the bond between Jack and Rose deepened. Together, they weathered countless storms during the chaotic era. Though Jack was honest and somewhat slow-witted, Rose's intelligence and wit made them a perfect match. With perseverance, hard work, and Rose's constant support, as well as guidance from Elder Seven Hong, Jack mastered the 18 dragon-subduing palms, eventually rising to legendary status. Every technique passed down from the martial greats was painstakingly absorbed and perfected, especially after Rose was gravely wounded. Jack braved countless dangers, carrying her on his back up sheer cliffs hundreds of meters high to find Master Lightlamp, a reclusive monk hidden deep in the mountains. Only those with great destiny and inner strength could meet him. He not only healed Rose's wounds, but, recognizing their sincerity and virtue amidst turbulent times, entrusted them with the sacred martial manual 9 Yin scripture. He warned them to guard it closely and never let it fall into evil hands. Through countless trials, the bond between Jack and Rose grew ever stronger. Yet in their hearts, they knew the instability of the era might force them apart. They made a pact. If separated, Jack would leave behind a drum pendant as a sign. On nearby stones, he would carve Mongolian letters to guide her to him. Though prepared for separation, they still believed they would remain together forever. But fate had other plans. When Jack returned to see his 7 masters, they strongly opposed his relationship with Rose. To them, her father, the Eastern heretic, was a dangerous villain, and thus Rose couldn't be trusted. They urged Jack to end it. Still, Jack remained devoted. But when his masters later visited Peach Blossom Island, disaster struck. 6 of them died from poisoning. The loss devastated Jack. They had raised and mentored him during his time in the Central Plains. Grieving and bewildered, Jack blamed Elijah and Rose, believing they had plotted the deaths as the tragedy occurred on their island. Despite Rose's tearful pleas of innocence, Jack, overwhelmed by rage and sorrow, couldn't think clearly. He drove her away. Yet before she left, Rose calmly asked that if he ever met the First Master again, he should ask him the truth of what happened. Only then would he know if her family was truly to blame. So they parted ways. Later, Jack encountered the First Master, who revealed he had not been on the island at the time, and neither Elijah nor Rose was responsible for the deaths. Realizing his terrible mistake, Jack set out to find Rose once more. But the martial world was vast, and though he searched endlessly, it was like chasing wind-blown clouds. She was nowhere to be found. Vâng, bạn hãy gửi đoạn văn cần truyền để tôi tiến hành dịch và đổi tên nhân vật. Although Jack never gave up, wherever he went, he left behind a small drum as a sign. He hoped that one day Grace would recognize it somewhere since the day he left Peach Blossom Island. Grace also set out to search for him everywhere. Moreover, she was constantly pursued by the Western Venom, Owen Fong. He knew that Grace and Jack were in possession of the 9 Yin Manual, a secret martial arts scripture that could make its owner invincible and dominate the martial world. During one capture, Grace was tortured by Owen Fong, forcing her to reveal the whereabouts of the manual. However, she resolutely refused to say a word, even as he used all kinds of threats and planned to feed her to venomous snakes. Being clever, Grace devised a plan. She claimed that the manual was stored in her mind. Hearing that, Owen Fong released her, but to keep her under control, he implanted a snake-containing collar around her neck. If she tried to remove it, the snake would bite instantly, yet Grace wasn't afraid. She noticed that Owen's subordinates were all show and lacked intelligence. She immediately provoked them, making them compete to display their skills to impress their master. Amidst the chaos, Grace cleverly untied herself and jumped into the water, disappearing. Although Owen Fong was highly skilled, he couldn't swim. Furious, he could only watch helplessly, but he didn't give up and guessed where Grace would surface. He immediately sent people after her. Meanwhile, the Mongol army, during a pursuit of the Zhao Jin forces, was poisoned through the water source, putting the entire unit at risk of being wiped out by their poisoned leader. Just then, Grace happened to pass by and noticed the situation. Among the poisoned soldiers were familiar childhood friends. One of them was Prince Andrew, son of the great Khan. Jack rushed to check and quickly recognized his old acquaintances. Without hesitation, Jack appeared and thwarted the enemy's plan. The poisoner didn't expect to face a martial arts master who possessed both the 18 dragon-subduing palms and the 9 Yin Manual. He released poisonous smoke, thinking it could kill everyone. But Jack calmly walked out of the smoke unharmed, continuously striking and deflecting all attacks. He even used the enemy's own techniques against him, causing the villain to be poisoned and accidentally strike his head against a shield, dying on the spot. Everyone was astonished by Jack's incredible martial arts display. No one expected that in just 2 years in the Central Plains, Jack's skills had reached such a high level. However, since the enemy died, there was no antidote. Jack used his inner energy to force the poison out, saving everyone. After helping the Mongols defeat the Zhao Jin army, Jack decided to return to the grasslands to visit his aging mother. As for Grace, after escaping Owen Fong's pursuit, she continued her journey alone to find Jack. Heaven did not forsake her. After many days of searching, she finally found the small drum Jack had left as a sign. Along with another symbol on a stone, she was overjoyed and quickly mounted her horse. She followed the direction Jack had indicated to find her beloved. After 2 years away from home, Jack had matured significantly. He had also earned great merit by saving Prince Andrew, which greatly pleased the great Khan and made his mother extremely proud. Eventually, Grace followed the final sign and arrived in Mongol territory. Unfortunately, Owen Fong caught wind of her whereabouts and began pursuing her once again. While Grace was riding across the steppe, he launched a sudden attack. A poisoned needle struck her, causing her to fall from her horse. Just when he thought he had her, Princess Blossom and her entourage happened to pass by. Seeing an old man bullying a young woman, the princess immediately ordered her horse forward. She rescued Grace from the villain. Owen Fong tried to chase them, but was attacked by a swarm of poisonous prairie bees. In the Central Plains, he might have been a tiger, but in the Mongolian steppe, he was nothing more than a trapped fish. Seeing the massive Mongol camp, he had no choice but to retreat. Cunning as ever, Owen Fong ordered his men to infiltrate the camp and poison the water supply, aiming to weaken the army and attack afterward. After being saved by Princess Blossom, Grace was not only treated for her wounds, but the Mongols also used a special method to extract the poison and remove the snake collar. She was even given a precious gift by the princess as a keepsake. During a conversation, Grace heard the princess mention her childhood sweetheart, none other than Jack. But when the princess revealed that the great Khan had arranged a marriage between her and Jack, Grace was thunderstruck. After all her hardship searching for him, to hear such shocking news caused her to faint on the spot. Back with Jack, after returning home, his mother, seeing how strong and capable he had become, gave him a blood-stained robe, what his father wore when he was betrayed and killed. Jack swore to his mother that he would avenge his father. At that moment, Princess Blossom, overjoyed at Jack's return, ran to hug him, thinking the long-awaited wedding granted by the great Khan would finally happen. It was her greatest hope, but Jack spoke honestly and clearly. Although he cherished Blossom deeply because they grew up together, he had always seen the princess as a sister. He never had romantic feelings for her. Jack also told the princess about Rachel and admitted his deep affection for the girl from the Central Plains. Upon hearing this, Blossom was overcome with sorrow. After so many years of waiting for Jack's love, all she received was a gentle rejection. Carrying her disappointment and anger, Blossom returned to her quarters and smashed everything in sight. At that moment, Rachel had come intending to return the gift the princess had given her and quietly leave. She thought Jack was about to become another woman's husband and did not want to ruin their happiness. Before Rachel left, the princess personally chose a fine horse for her. However, just then, terrible news arrived. Someone had poisoned the water source. Fortunately, the horses refused to drink that day, raising suspicion among the camp and prompting a timely investigation. As a result, no harm was done. Both the princess and Rachel understood immediately that this was the work of the venomous West Serpent Owen. Knowing Rachel was still injured, the princess advised her to stay behind for safety. Rachel agreed and decided to remain temporarily. As the leader of the beggar clan, Rachel quickly thought of seeking help. She wrote a letter and asked the princess to send it with a trusted messenger to the beggar clan. Hoping that, upon receiving the distress call, the beggar clan brothers would come to assist, Jack was meanwhile summoned by the Khan, who wanted to assign him the critical task of leading the army. But the Mongol princes were displeased. They believed that martial arts from the Central Plains were merely fancy moves useless on the battlefield. The Khan, trusting Jack's abilities, asked him to perform and convince everyone. Unable to refuse, Jack stepped into the center of the camp. Surrounded by thousands of Mongol soldiers, under their astonished gaze, he gathered his inner strength and unleashed the Dragon-Subduing 18 palms and 9 yin manual. His movements were swift as wind, light as mist. His left hand tapped gently, his right hand struck forcefully. His swordless strikes seemed like divine dragons descending. Each palm carried the force to shatter mountains and split waves. At the same time, he showcased 2 ultimate techniques. One with soft overcoming hard, the other hard breaking soft. 2 opposing peaks of martial arts fused in perfect harmony. The crowd was breathless. From the outside, his attacks seemed gentle and silent, but those with keen senses could feel the surging power like underwater currents. All the soldiers fell silent before erupting in unified cheers, hailing him as a true hero. Rachel was also in the crowd, silently watching. Moved to tears, Blossom was surprised at her reaction, thinking it was due to unhealed injuries. While speaking with the Khan, Jack's eyes accidentally caught a glimpse of someone wearing a scarf and mask. That gaze was oddly familiar and stirred something deep within him, a sudden sense that he had encountered his dream. But he couldn't recognize that it was Rachel. While the crowd was still cheering for Jack's stunning display, a group of infiltrators had already slipped into the Mongol camp. However, their presence was quickly discovered after a few soldiers were found murdered. Once informed, the Khan decided that the following morning, All troops would assemble to practice tactics and prepare for battle against the Zhao and Jin. The next morning, the drums of urgency sounded, and the entire camp began training. The Mongol princes, who had always disliked Jack, now aimed to display their own strength. One of the common tactics used by the Mongol army was the pincer move. Their units would form a U-shape to lure the enemy in, then close in and eliminate them. While highly effective, this tactic couldn't be applied to every terrain. Jack observed carefully and sensed something was off, though he wasn't sure how to adjust it. Meanwhile, through the princess, Rachel learned that the Khan intended for Jack to lead the three armies. She was deeply worried. Rachel knew that though Jack was talented, he lacked strategic sharpness. This could be a major challenge, possibly beyond Jack's capabilities. She suggested the princess ask Jack whether he had brought any military manuals back from the Central Plains. If so, they could help the Mongol army in the coming battle. Rachel believed that people from the Central Plains often relied on such texts in warfare. The princess agreed without question. Meanwhile, as the entire Mongol camp was training intensely, they discovered hundreds of people arriving from the Central Plains. These newcomers were quickly surrounded. However, Jack saw them and recognized familiar faces. It turned out that, thanks to Rachel's letter, members of the beggar clan had arrived. Jack had hoped Rachel would come too. When the members of the beggars' sect arrived, they said their leader had only sent letters to them. They hadn't seen her in the past 4 months. All they carried was a painting of Huang Rong. Upon seeing it, Guo Jing felt as if he had found his long-lost love, clutching the painting with a heart full of hope. As the beggars' sect members were settled into their quarters, Huang Rong secretly approached them and scolded them for handing the painting over to Guo Jing. They were confused. Why was she here and avoiding Guo Jing? Huang Rong calmly explained that she preferred a free, wandering life and didn't want to be tied to anyone. That was why she had to keep her presence secret and forbade them from revealing she was nearby. Naturally, none of them dared disobey their chief. The next day, Hua Zheng came to see Guo Jing, who was worried about the threat of a Jin invasion. Recalling Huang Rong's advice, she asked if he had brought any military manuals from the Central Plains. Suddenly, Guo Jing remembered that he had indeed carried along a treasured strategy book passed down by Yue Fei, an invaluable text that detailed tactics capable of countering the Jin army. Hua Zheng was shocked. Such a coincidence could only mean Huang Rong had something to do with it, but she kept her suspicions to herself. Guo Jing was also surprised that the Mongolian princess knew about this Central Plains classic. Still, the truth remained hidden. That evening, Guo Jing brought out the manual to discuss strategy with the beggars' sect. But the beggars were skilled at begging, not military tactics. They couldn't offer useful advice. Outside the tent, Huang Rong secretly sent in a letter with suggestions. Even so, Guo Jing began feeling suspicious, though he couldn't pinpoint why, especially since the beggars were adept at keeping secrets. While Huang Rong was secretly observing the tent, someone noticed her. It was Princess Hua Zheng. The moment she saw Huang Rong, Hua Zheng understood everything. The girl Guo Jing had always longed for was Huang Rong, and the one Huang Rong sought was also Guo Jing. Later, Hua Zheng confronted Huang Rong alone. Forced into a corner, Huang Rong confessed everything. Furious at being deceived from the start, Hua Zheng attacked, blades flashing. Yet she couldn't match Huang Rong's skilled Dagobang technique. In the first round, Huang Rong held back. But in the second and third, she disarmed Hua Zheng and even struck her acupoints, leaving her immobile. At that moment, the Western venom, Ouyang Feng, appeared, stronger than ever. Huang Rong was swiftly subdued, but with her quick wit, she used her bamboo staff to spook the horses, creating chaos and escaping. Unfortunately, Ouyang Feng captured Hua Zheng and used her as a hostage. Unwilling to see her benefactor harmed, Huang Rong agreed to hand over the 9-yin manual. Ouyang Feng, though skeptical at first, was too eager. Seeing the text filled with obscure writings, he didn't read it carefully. Greedily, he released the princess and escaped with the book. Afterward, Huang Rong begged Hua Zheng to keep her presence a secret. With Guo Jing gaining the Khan's favor, exposure could bring him grave trouble if Hua Zheng's brothers learned Huang Rong was nearby. To protect him, she left that very night. Days passed, but Gojing couldn't forget Wang Rong. Despite being highly valued by the Khan, he resolved to search for her before returning. However, right after he left, dire news arrived. A Mongol tribe had been ambushed by the Jin. All livestock were stolen, the villagers slaughtered. Only one gravely injured survivor escaped. Angered by the Jin's arrogance and aggression, the Khan declared war, aiming to strike their capital. But to get there, they had to cross the dangerous Guanhe Pass. The least costly route was through Song territory. The Khan sent emissaries to the southern Song, requesting passage and recalling Guojing for his knowledge of the land. Yet soon, word came back. The Song had denied the request. Still, the Khan insisted on marching through Song lands. This decision sparked fear throughout the region, with people dreading an inevitable, bloody war, one that would surely claim countless innocent lives. Right at that moment, Ethan was on his way to find Chloe when he heard news that the Mongols were preparing to invade the Song dynasty. He immediately turned his horse around and returned to the steppe. Before the Great Khan, Ethan earnestly pleaded for him to halt the war. He said that both Mongolia and the Song were his homelands. He couldn't stand by and watch weapons tear the land apart and innocent people suffer. Even if it cost his life, he was willing, as long as the Great Khan withdrew the order of attack. However, the Great Khan saw Ethan as an ungrateful traitor. He ordered Ethan to be executed. The royal princes were secretly pleased as the threat to their succession was being removed. But unexpectedly, Prince Andrew, whom Ethan had once saved from the Jin troops, rushed out to plead for mercy. Andrew advised Ethan to comply with the Khan's wishes, but Ethan firmly refused. He declared that even if he had to die 100,000 times, he would still oppose this unjust war. Moved by Ethan's resolve, the Great Khan spared his life, but ordered tight surveillance, forbidding Ethan and his mother from leaving the camp. Ethan hurried home, intending to take his mother back to the Central Plains. However, his mother knew that following her son would only burden him further. She understood that the Khan had kept her only to hold Ethan back. All she ever wanted was to raise her son into a good man and see him return to his homeland to do great deeds. She knew if she went with him, she would become a hostage. So she pretended to agree while Ethan was busy packing. Silently, she stood before her husband's memorial tablet and took her own life. When Ethan returned, he found his mother lifeless and collapsed in despair. At that moment, Princess Rose came running and helped the mother and son escape the camp. Thanks to her help, their carriage finally broke free, heading toward the Central Plains. Though it was heart-wrenching for Ethan to leave someone he loved behind. Princess Rose quietly chose to step aside so Ethan could return and fulfill his destiny. After laying his mother to rest, Ethan returned to southern Song. He planned to enlist at Giza in preparation for resisting the Mongol invasion. But right there, he was surprised to see many eateries in the market advertising cherry blossom chicken, a dish created by Chloe. Finding it strange, Ethan inquired and learned that a girl had paid them in advance to promote the dish. Ethan immediately knew it was Chloe. That night, amid heavy rain, Ethan was overwhelmed with memories of how Chloe had once made the cherry blossom chicken. He tried to recreate the dish himself, hoping Chloe would sense it and appear. And just as fate would have it, she did. Though long separated, their love brought them back together in a storm, embracing each other tightly, like a desert meeting rain after years of drought. All their longing burst forth in a flood of emotion. The next morning, they went together to the army camp to enlist. At first, the general thought they were ordinary civilians and wanted to reject them, but Chloe quickly convinced him. She said she had never seen the Mongols with her own eyes and only wished to witness it firsthand, even if it meant death. Touched by their sincerity, the general allowed them onto the fortress. Soon after, the massive Mongol army arrived. The sheer number of troops made even the seasoned Song soldiers tremble. Everyone feared the fortress would fall quickly. But just then, a mysterious figure appeared. With a single strike, he sent dozens of Mongol warriors flying like leaves in the wind. Ethan and Chloe were stunned by the strange technique, but after a moment, Ethan realized it was the martial art of Toadstyle, meaning the man was likely the Western Venom, Owen. However, his technique was chaotic. Chloe quickly guessed the reason. Owen must have been practicing from a fake copy of the Nine Yin Manual, one she had deliberately made overly complex, causing him to fall into madness. Owen's moves were both powerful and erratic, harming enemies and allies alike. The battlefield was thrown into chaos. Thousands of Mongol troops fell before the mad old man's power. Even siege weapons couldn't stop him. The Western venom, Owen, had gone nearly insane, his strength monstrous. Wherever he went, he swept through everything. His only target was the Great Khan. Seeing the Khan in danger, Ethan couldn't stay still. He rushed from the fortress, jumped on his horse, and chased after Owen. Soldiers parted to let Ethan through. A battle between two martial titans began. One side was Ethan, master of both the Dragon Palm and the Nine Yin Manual, calm, powerful, as steady as a mountain. The other was Owen, his eyes wicked, moving like a venomous snake. Ethan's Dragon Palm thundered through the air like roaring dragons, each strike tearing through the space. Meanwhile, Owen unleashed a chilling, eerie poison style, moves named Ghost Strike, Phantom Shadow, and Death Spiral, his force venomous and suffocating. He surrounded Ethan, pushing him into a tight spot, but Ethan stood firm, eyes bright, waiting for an opening. With a roar, he launched a storm of palms. A mighty blast rose, dust surged, rocks shattered, the ground shook like thunder from the heavens. From defense to offense, Ethan unleashed 3 rapid strikes, pushing Owen back 3 steps. The two were evenly matched, neither gaining the upper hand, until suddenly, Prince Andrew was almost struck by Owen. Ethan rushed to save him, but was crushed beneath a collapsing siege engine. In that life-or-death moment, Ethan remembered a secret technique passed to him by his master. He used it, and Owen staggered. At that instant, an arrow from the Khan struck Owen's chest. Though gravely wounded, Owen refused to yield. Ethan had to strike again and again to force him back. At last, Owen, unwilling to die, escaped by tunneling away. As he fled, both armies braced once more for battle. To stop the fighting, Chloe daringly seized the Song general, forcing him not to give the attack order. Once again, Ethan stepped into the midst of thousands. Risking his life to stop the war, the Great Khan appeared, still determined to teach the Song a lesson. But Ethan stopped him. He said, as long as he lived, he would use every breath to prevent a massacre. He took no side, only stood for the people. Faced with Ethan's sincere heart and unshakable resolve, the Khan finally gave in and ordered his troops to retreat. In the end, Ethan and Chloe, after fulfilling their mission, roamed the world freely, living in peace and harmony together. And so the film ends. How did you feel about this story? Leave a comment to let me know. If you enjoyed it, please give a like and subscribe to support future videos. Thank you so much, and see you again.